Black Hills. What a hell of a night, fellas. Nebraska fans are smiling Sunday morning if their head doesn't hurt too bad. 28-10, a impressive first half for Nebraska on defense, enough offense, special teams were okay. Boom Sheedy living up to that moniker. But it's a good Sunday. It's a good second week heading into third week of September for Nebraska football for the first time in 8 years at 2-0. Wow, oh, wow. Did Mr. Tony and his defense come to play?
Last night was therapeutic for the entire fan base. I got a lot of text messages and on Twitter of "we deserve this," and I think the football team understood what the assignment was, and it was one of those things where that should be the standard in Lincoln. I said that yesterday on our pregame show. I said that should be the standard, that the stadium should be packed, there should be a buzz, and every football Saturday in Lincoln should mean something because you only have 8 of them. And I wondered, and I thought Nebraska would win by 13. And I'll give my reason here real quick. But I thought if the new Nebraska is going to show up, last night's the time where they start to unveil that they're a different program. And I thought they did that right away. But it just, Nebraska's 2-0 and they got some things to work on, but they also have some really positive things that are headed their way. It just, everybody needed that last night. And thank you to Colorado. They played the role. It was like the Harlem Globetrotters against the Washington Generals. One team was more talented, was better prepared. The other team, yeah, they had some flash and dash and they showed up, but they were not ready to win that football game. And guys, let's be honest. That football game was won last night before Colorado ever got on the plane in Boulder. Nebraska won that football game before they ever kicked off with their preparation, their attitude, and everything that goes into being successful on Saturday. And it came to fruition. And they're 2-0, and they finally erased a demon of Colorado, and they can talk. They can talk for a while now. I think they have 12 hours left. There's a 24-hour rule, so they have 12 hours left. God, that was fun. That was fun last night. We haven't experienced that in a while.
Everything about the show that Nebraska put together went as you would hope it would go according to script. Because you had the celebration of the 94 national championship team. You had Bud Crawford leading the team out there on the field. You honored the volleyball team at one of the moments between quarters. You had Frank Solich and Tom Osborne standing side by side, welcoming Frank Solich into the College Football Hall of Fame. A lot of times when they stage these types of shows, it doesn't have a great end. Like, we're going to honor the black shirts by wearing black alternate uniforms, and they get shellacked 56-7 or something like that. But everything that they did to put on the best show possible was culminated with a dominating performance. And I thought this was a plateau victory. Nebraska's had some big wins over the last 20 years of malaise where you had good years with Bo Pelini, but obviously that wasn't sustained because of bad leadership above and changes were made. But, wins over Miami or Ohio State or Oregon at home, there just wasn't much traction once they got to that plateau and it was back down the hill and backsliding again. There seems to be something with that performance last night that Matt Rule's organization, the way everybody is bought in. I've still maintained that Ty Robinson announcing last November that he was coming back for another year is one of the seminal moments for Nebraska football history. Dylan Raiola saying, I'm going to come to Nebraska back in December. All these things kind of fell into place and culminated in last night. And I agree. Colorado they were not prepared to win. They were not prepared to play. And I think that was a really devastating performance for what they were trying to do with Deion Sanders. I think it's over for them. But for Nebraska, I think it's only onward and upward. And everybody around the country right now is talking about Nebraska and the show that was put on. The thunderstruck between quarters 3 and 4. I mean, you want a 2-minute recruiting video for Nebraska football and what it's like to play football at Memorial Stadium in a night game. I mean, everything right now is trending in the right way for Nebraska.
You can talk about the light show. The game itself was a 3-hour advertisement for why Nebraska's on the come up, why all these recruits that are in town be wise to pick Nebraska. I mean, that was a fantastic showcase from the fans to the style of play that you had on the field, the light show, the full day just of football beauty that was downtown Lincoln yesterday. Like, all of that was a absolute recruiting win for Nebraska. I would be surprised if they don't get a couple of commits out of that weekend. I know there's guys that are committed to other schools, but that's the type of game that sticks with your recruit, that sticks in the mind of, you know what, there's a lot of special places in America, but what I just saw tonight, that was special. The recruiting secondary, though, because what my concern is right now is the team of 2024, because what last night showed me was this team still has a ways to go, but this team is the team that we've been waiting for as collective Nebraskans for a while. That team that has the quarterback, that has a defense that is reminiscent of those 1990s black shirt teams. I'm going to get into my thoughts on the defense because upon my rewatch last night, I was up late making sure I had the good content for the Average Joe Sports Show. That defense, man, I thought about it live and I saw it again in the rewatch. They play like those 1990s black shirt defenses with a fast and physical defensive line that plays with their hair on fire, sure tackling in the back end, defensive backs that are willing to get up and get in a run fit. Like, it's reminiscent. It's not the same, don't get me wrong, but it's reminiscent of those 1990s black shirt defenses. They have a ways to go, don't get me wrong. But then an offense that has balance. Like, that's my takeaway from last night. Was Dylan Raiola perfect? No. Was the rushing attack perfect? No. I think the passing attack, it was good last night. It still needs a little bit of work. I want to get into that a little bit. But, like, the balanced offense with what appears to be a high-level elite defense, it's what you've been waiting for if you're a Nebraska fan.
Absolutely. You've got a little bit better picture of what Coach Rule's been preaching, and that's complementary football. Think about it. You saw it again where the offense gets you a lead, all right, and it's nice that Nebraska's playing with the lead through 2 games. You stall, and you get a punt that's downed inside the 2 by Boom Sheedy. And then what happens? To Gary's point, you get prep and the week the team put in physically and mentally getting ready for Colorado. GIF is out there communicating with the 2 corners that are trying to defend Colorado in that green space. And you get Tommy Hill jumping that sideline throw for a pick 6 to go up 14-0, and the place goes bonkers. Offense got you a lead. You pin Colorado inside the 5, and then you get the pick 6. So the idea, the dream of complementary footballs happened 2 weeks in a row, and I loved Coach Rule's comments about we're a defense of stars versus the individual. It's always kind of a we preach. It's about we or us, as Rule talks about. And, you know, just going through some of Coach Prime's comments post-game, I mean, Nebraska had all the answers on defense. Colorado made a play here and there, but Nebraska tackled well. They were keyed in on their assignments. They were physical. They were physical on both sides of the football. The run game was physical enough. Nebraska made enough big plays in their passing game. I think of Lloyd and I think of Fedoni up the seam. Those are 2 of the bigger pass plays. Nebraska really just didn't panic. They seized the moment, Sharpie, and they enjoyed themselves. They knew the work was going to pay off. They were confident, and that V word you've used this week, validation, showed up big time.
Yeah, they knew they were going to win a football game. I mean, before they ever entered the stadium, they knew they were going to win the football game. And they've been a confident bunch for a while. They just need to have the validation of wins. And I thought last night was also a game where the game of football, once in a while, you know, that you have the Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, those kind of upsets, and you go, man, Northern Illinois isn't better than Notre Dame. And is Notre Dame worse than Northern Illinois? I thought last night was a true identity of both programs that were playing. What they stand for, how they got to where they're at, and how it comes out when you get squeezed. Because Colorado got squeezed, and Colorado is the same team they've been for a while in terms of very undisciplined. They have 2 elite players. They have really good wide receivers. They're going to make plays. But, man, when it's nut-cutting time, what happens to Colorado? It was nut-cutting time when they started the kickoff last night, and you saw Nebraska's response. And I think that's a positive moving forward. But I keep hammering this point that you guys have brought up, is there were guys, not specifically for last night, but for the entire season, there were guys that came back for moments like last night that are not satisfied and know it's only one win on the road to get to where they want to go. I just think there's a lot of positives. I mean, there's stuff to nitpick, and I have a couple of concerns that still leave me as between a 7 and 8 win team. But man, when the bell rang last night, for them to show up like they did, I think that is a great sign in what the step is in this program, because you can do what you did last night and build on it for a Northern Iowa, an Illinois, a Purdue. And I'll say another thing, guys. If you look at the results of the first 2 weeks, there are some really good teams that have struggled against equal or lesser competition. Nebraska really hasn't struggled against 2 teams that are lesser than them. I think you have to give credit for that, not playing down to your competition, because we've seen that before. And I also think maybe down the road later this week, we start to reassess the schedule of some performances by teams that are on Nebraska's schedule and go, whoa, is it going to be more than 8? More than, you know what I'm saying?
I think that Nebraska is going to face a couple teams coming up that are better coached, more organized, a little more focused than what Colorado brought to town yesterday. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, that what game on the schedule was kind of the benchmark one. And I point to Illinois. It's a Friday night game. It's at home. And they beat Kansas yesterday. So good on them. I think Greg Schiano, most people figure that Rutgers is better now, that they've got better coaching and they're more disciplined. So those will be challenges for Nebraska. But Colorado, they're going to be hoping that it is snowing at Beaver Creek and Winter Park like tomorrow, because the interest in Colorado football home games is going to start to dissipate. And they're going to want a reason why the enthusiasm isn't quite there anymore. And maybe there are some empty seats. Nebraska doesn't have to worry about it snowing at Nebraska, right? So for Colorado,
they have real snow there once in a while.
So for Colorado,
some of us cut our chin there one night.
But for Colorado, I that was such an exposure last night. But Nebraska's got some tests coming up with a couple of programs that take the sport more seriously. So what they did against UTEP and what they did yesterday, especially really just having to shut it down in the second half. And I think Matt Rule kind of alluded to that in his post game. Like, well, we didn't have to do much in the second half because they weren't going to be competitive. So why should we show our cards to Northern Iowa? So the second half was kind of a letdown to a certain extent, because Nebraska didn't keep it going and marching and take some chances. They played to a certain extent, Gary. They kind of did play down to their opponent in the second half, given the effort that Colorado put forth. But Nebraska's got some tests coming up, and unfortunately, they get to take them at home too.
The one quick thing here, Nebraska met the moment last night, and Nebraska stayed focused. Colorado likes to be in the moments, but they never meet them. Guys, there was, they let, first of all, before the game, you got the student section that is FU, CU, and Travis Hunter was playing along with it, and it was great. Student section deserves a shout out. They were packed 90 minutes before the game. They stayed the entire game. They maybe wandered onto the field after the game. But
yes, they did.
Colorado, you had players. So you saw the sidelines last night. They were packed with either celebrities or former players or, hangers on. There were a lot of guys, seriously, from the 2014 team that were there last night that were standing on the sideline. Nate Gary is standing next to the Colorado bench. Nate Gary probably talked more shit to the Colorado bench last night than he did during his career, and we know he was a shit talker. And the Colorado players were engaging with him. Nate Gary, I think is unemployed. What are you doing?
He's got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's in graduate school. That's not unemployed.
Okay. So, but they were, and Nate had a good, and if anybody saw Nate yesterday, Nate was in his bag. Okay, Nate had a good time. He celebrated, not the inability to play against Colorado during his career. So that game was a true identity of where both programs currently are. And how many times have we said that about a Nebraska game after a Sunday when they play on that stage?
Minimal, if any. I mean, they've got a couple of Wisconsin overtime games you think about. One 8 years ago that was, your watermark, and you lost that, and then Ohio State followed. There are things that this team will, when they file in and meet with their coaches, their position coaches, and talk amongst themselves, they'll rewatch last night. Maybe they already have, and they'll find a lot of things to get better at. But Sharpie, to the point about meeting the moment and then training for it and then being confident and going out. I mean, those are all mile markers this team needed to be able to meet and pass. And no one's crowding or anointing them, but it's okay to feel good. So many folks in the stream chat do on the Average Joe Sports Show podcast right now as we're live. They feel good. I mean, you can I don't think you worry about this team getting fat and happy. I think they're going to continue to push. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to continue to get better from what was a good first half and a good night last night.
And I think the biggest reason why I think is, I kind of briefly mentioned this earlier, the biggest reason why I think this team is going to be in every single game they play this year, why there's confidence that this team can be different, is because of that Husker defense. I know Raiola gets the name appeal. He's the one the national media is talking about. He's not the driving force on this team. It's the defense. That front four is absolutely nasty. Tony White had a great game plan last night. Like, the interior defensive line for Colorado had question marks coming in. They struggled early. And what's he doing? Like, there's a play where he lined up Princewell as an off-ball linebacker in the middle of the defense and had him go rush against the center. Like,
yeah.
I don't think I'd seen that before. The stunts that they were running inside with Ty and Nash, fantastic. Incredible performance by the Husker defensive line. Combine that with what he said earlier, the back seven, back five, whatever you want to call it, sure tackling. Like, even whenever Colorado got a quote-unquote big passing play, how it broke against North Dakota State was one missed tackle, and now it's Travis Hunter or Jimmy Horn off to the races. That Nebraska back four tackled super solidly. The front four was nasty all game long. Like, it's reasons for confidence moving forward. Those are the things that set the baseline for how good your defense is going to be. And if Nebraska has a defense that plays like that all season long, I believe we're going to have a defense that plays like that all season long, you're going to be in every single football game you play.
Positive Mike checks it into the stream, and this is kind of the vibe and feel you had from all the folks in red last night. I left 10 years of pent-up frustration, pent-up aggression in the stadium last night. That was the mood. That was the feel. Folks were so celebratory. And
10 years.
It was, 10 years since you beat Miami and had a team ranked, right? Aside from that 16 season. Tiger Shark Diver checks and we beat CU so bad. Negative Mike turned into positive Mike. We love it. Rick checks in, cheering for Nebraska, cheering for Elijah's Broncos. Yes, that is a sweet lid. Elijah, I will give you that. Although Sharpie may burn it if he gets his hands on it.
God, Geno Smith gonna have a big day today.
Broncos plus 6.5. It's a lock.
not a Drew lock. Not a Drew lock though.
No, I'm not saying they win, but that's a lot of points.
I like Elijah.
Yeah, there we go. Guys, let's
you know what? One quick thing here on the fans.
Yes,
and I think as we're all starting to rewatch it and are painfully having to listen to Colt McCoy being thrust into his first game on air is that game when he was hired basically for the studio show, but because Peacock had the Brazil game, the best guys are down in Brazil. So Colt McCoy, that's not good. Even though he did say a nice thing. A friend of mine was in the elevator going up to the 6th floor last night with him. He was going to my friend was getting off on, yeah, he's bougie. He's like the 4th floor.
It's a good friend.
But he was standing next to Colt McCoy, And jokingly, he apologized for what Ndamukong Suh did to him. And McCoy said to him, I thought I was going to die that night. Well, so Colt struggled in his first game. But I've only watched the first quarter. I hope that people that were there, please tell the people that were not there how electric the place was, because I don't think it comes across on television how loud and engaged that stadium was from the start of the game to the finish of the game. And that's, guys, you know what last night was? Kind of on the heels of what Elijah said about black shirt defense. That's what Nebraska football is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go back to the 90s and the glory days. They are standalone, and that's an incredible run. But that last night, that stadium and that field, that should be the standard for Nebraska football.
I got to echo about the students. They were there 90 minutes before the game, and they were packed. And they were Nebraska nice. I believe I heard him say, "Good luck, see you." Good luck, see you a couple of times. So that was nice.
You heard?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Bill, they emphasized that luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I might be paraphrasing. But I got a kick out of the Nebraska does court stormings and field stormings a little differently. It's more like court strolling. When Matt Rule can take his two daughters out onto the court after the win over, who was it, Purdue or something last year, and then Nebraska students, started to kind of wander onto the field a little bit, like they were, going through velvet ropes and walking along red carpet or something. So it's more like fields strolling. It wasn't exactly, anything where you thought, boy, Colorado's in danger. I think they kind of ushered them out, but fans were great. Students were great. And it's, to me, it is from the moment the 4-year case of the flu let Frank Solich go. I think the energy has been pent up for that long. And like I said, I think they reached a plateau last night for fans to understand what Nebraska football is all about instead of listening to people who were around in the 90s.
Can I ask a question for the roundtable about the fans? Because sitting in the postgame press conference last night, and this isn't just last night, it's been for a while. The bond between the fan base and this particular football team is pretty strong. I think the football team gets the fans, and I think the fans get the players, if that makes sense, because they understand what they're doing and they understand what the obligation is to play football at Nebraska. And, I think as fans, we want some of the most minimal things. Guys play hard. They represent the university. Man, don't screw up. Just be a Husker. And it's weird. And I might be like reaching here, but it felt like last night has kind of reiterated the point of 2024 is that everybody understands their role. Like the fans understand what they need to do, what their expectations need to be. The players understand their role. And I think there's a bond. It's a very likable football team. You have a star, but you don't have guys that want to be stars. They just want to win football games. I love that they admit that out loud. Ramir Johnson last night, and Ramir's been through the ringer. Guys, he said he just wants to win. Yeah, they're 2-0. They got 2 wins. Yeah, they beat Colorado. He just wants to win. Isn't that what fans want? They just want to win. And you have players that are like, yeah, I just want to win football games. And they're 2-0.
This team with as many 6-year guys that are back, like the Ramirs, like the Ties, like the Benharts, dude, they have been through the ringer. They do want to think about the last time they got to 2-0 or got a second win on the season. A lot of those guys have had to wait a hell of a long time throughout a season to get to win number 2 in search of getting to 6 or more. So, no, the bond is great. You've got maturity that we talk about quite a bit, but it's straight up unselfishness. And that's from the top down that is preached about. And you saw it in Chasing 3, the snippet with UTEP. Dude, the guys that are busting their ass, get them in the game. I mean, it's that unselfishness message. So in Nebraska, their defensive line was very unselfish in the first quarter, into that second quarter. 4 sacks, tipped balls, hurries, mean, the stuff on social media last night when you looked up Colorado football was all sorts of people or movie scenes with people getting launched and sliding on the floor every time Shador dropped back to pass. Nebraska's defensive line was on one last night. And that was what a lot of us circled as, why it was going to be a good night for Nebraska. Well, the guys with the hard hats brought it, as well did the offensive line.
And it's something I've said before, and I think we really got to see it last night. Like, this team kind of represents that hardworking ethos that I think Nebraskans see in themselves. Like, so many people in the state work with their hands, or, farmers, or whatever you're doing, like hardworking, put your head down and work, that nobody cares, work harder kind of mindset. You're not in it for the glory. You're not in it so people say, man, look at this guy doing a great job. You do it because hard work is the expectation around here. That's what the state of Nebraska is all about. That's what I love about this football team is they're playing for the guy next to them. They're not all about me. They're about the team. They're going to put their head down and keep on working. Like, I think this team, what Matt Rule has instilled within his team, represents that ethos that Nebraskans see in themselves. And I love that. It's why I think this team is so relatable to the fans, is because you see a little bit of yourself in what this football team is, how this football team plays. And when I say yourself, I mean the people of the state of Nebraska. But maybe I'm being a little too dramatic. Maybe I'm being a little bit too poetic with that statement. But I think it rings true that what Nebraskans see in themselves, what Nebraskans want to be, that this team gets that and represents that.
Well, you are being a little esoteric using the word ethos for the first time ever on the show, but nevertheless, I think I think there's a benefit of the Matt Foley's dad, Ed, taking their van down by the river around the state and having a beer in Shickley and in Fairbury and in Valentine and Ainsworth and Alliance several times. I think the barnstorming around the state is something that people have been longing for as well, because Milt and Dan and Tony and Frank, people around the state of Nebraska felt like they knew those guys, and this coaching staff has made that effort to get to Omaha, to get around the high school coaches there, to get outstate Nebraska to the 500-mile radius. So people do feel like there is a renewed connection to the program, and so there is a little bit of ownership and an entire state of Nebraska to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And I think that has really paid off in that connection. You go back to one of Matt Rule's early days here, going to the WWE show. What was it, a PBA? Or was that CHI?
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, oh my God, the head football coach. I mean, people love that kind of stuff. And then he's at the concert in Omaha, and then Dylan Raiola's at the concert. And they have made the effort to connect themselves to the state. And I think that is paying off. And I think, look, people wanted to stay last night. There's no question. Had Deion Sanders not been the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, there may not have been the same kind of electricity in the air. There just would have been, we want to beat Colorado. But look, he brings a whole circus and a whole show to town. Nebraska fans wanted to be a part of it and bring that show to a close. And I think to that end, that's probably happened. I can't imagine, as much as people have been excited by Deion Sanders in Colorado, how much of a personal connection that they feel to that program. Nebraska fans feel a personal connection now, or a renewed connection to their football program that was so evident for 40 plus years.
It's Bill Doleman. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Schmidt, because I want to bring something up about defense that both you and Elijah have mentioned.
Sure. Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, the Average Joe Sports Show, the Sunday pod recap. Like and subscribe on YouTube to the Average Joe Sports Show. Spotify and iTunes can hear the digital version. Like and subscribe there, please. And tell a buddy about it. And we're excited to be back with you another Sunday morning at 10:30. We're going to pencil and then now make this ink for Sunday mornings. But Sharpie, continue here about the defense.
So I think there's a couple of subtle things about the defense. I might be in the minority. I was not enamored by. I enjoyed the offense for about 15 minutes last night. Yeah. I think after that, second half was a really disjointed football game, because Nebraska's got a Satterfield thing when it comes to coming out of the locker room. Their third quarter production in the last year now, plus 2 games, is a little bit upside down. but I thought the whole second half, because there were so many penalties, I thought it was very disjointed. There was absolutely no flow. It felt like the game was going on forever, and the game was decided. Colorado was not going to get back into that game. But with that said, there have been times where Nebraska leaves the door open that they can't close it, and it's because the defense doesn't get a stop or the offense stops scoring. And I think Matt Rule will address privately that they have to make the next step of that killer mentality, is that when you're up 28-0 and you get the ball to begin the second half, it's got to be 35-0, because we need the human victory cigar, Jalen Gramstad, to come out there and take a knee. But back to the defense, something Elijah brought up, and you did as well, Schmidt. I think they're a veteran defense. They've been together for a while. Tony White is on a heater now. They held that Colorado offense to 10 points and well under 400 yards. They are such a smart defense. If you go back and look at the Tommy Hill pick, before the play, Gifford and Bullock, because people go, why are those two guys on the field? Well, you know what? Because they're football players, and they're smart football players, and they can process stuff in real time before the snap. I think they should show what happened on that play to everybody about what you do in the moment, because Gifford and Bullock actually moved Tommy Hill. They noticed something in the alignment, and they moved Tommy Hill to be over the top. And they made the motion very subtly. Tommy saw it, moved, and look, he was in a position then to time it and make the pick and walk into the end zone from 7 yards out. I have said from day one, when this season, the camp started, Nebraska has a star at quarterback, but they will be known for what they do on defense. And that defense seems like they're only getting better. They're talented. Tommy Hill made some money last night in front of 7 NFL scouts, which I thought there would be more. But I love how they play defense, because they play team defense. They don't have one guy. They had the first 4 sacks were by 4 different guys. I think moving forward, Elijah brought this up, if that defense shows up every Saturday, and right now there's no reason to think that they're not going to, because that's 9 straight games that Nebraska's held opponents to 24 or less. Mm-hmm. You got something. You got something where you can let that offense still figure the things out that they have to figure out.
There is some time. Absolutely. There's time before Illinois. There's time before Rutgers. There's time before Ohio State, where you got security with that defense, and coming out to be better offensively in the third quarter is going to be a focus. Finding a rhythm with maybe some first down. A week ago, we're talking about how good Nebraska was on first down, whether it was run or when they did throw the football. Nebraska's first down passing, for the most part last night, aside from Fedoni on that seam route, was the short game has lost a lot of yards. It's not done much. So that's something I'm looking at. And then I thought Nebraska would have or could have gone more to that power run. It's not that Nebraska didn't run the football at all, but it seems like they had a chance to really go nail and hammer with Dowdell after that second touchdown run, specifically the first drive, where it was back-to-back chunk plays behind right guard, where you just mauled the defensive line. So I think Nebraska will find themselves. Your comfort is you've got a freshman that doesn't play like a freshman and can make some throws and continue to get better himself, and a veteran offensive line. But the good news here is a lot to work on and time to work on it because of your defense.
And you talk about the veteran offensive line. This has flown under the radar today. Turner Corcoran hasn't taken a wrong step yet this season. Like, quiet game one, quiet last night. That's the best thing you can say about an offensive lineman. Quiet. Like, there was a lot of doubts about what Corcoran could be coming into this season. Have you guys seen any glaring mistakes from Turner Corcoran? That's what his Husker career has been, is him getting beat around the edge because his feet are too slow, or here's a holding on the outside negating a running call. And we saw some of that last night, but Turner Corcoran has had an almost spotless start to the season. I just want to give credit to that. We still haven't seen this offensive line truly get tested. I don't think the front four of Colorado, I don't think that the front four last week was like anything special. Like, I don't think this offensive line's been tested. But that being said, you got to go take care of business against the teams in front of you. You can maybe look at that second half yesterday and say, well, the offensive line took their foot off the gas pedal. But I also think Colorado understood Nebraska was going to run the ball a hell of a lot more in the second half. They're playing a lot of single high. They were ready for the run in the second half. I'm not going to hold that against Nebraska. I also don't think Nebraska was pulling out too much offensively. I think they were keeping their cards pretty close to the chest in the second half. And we got Pat chiming in saying he still prefers Nebraska to put the nail in the coffin in the second half if the second half offense was intentional. That's fair, but it's the second game of the season. I don't think you want to put too much on film. And that Colorado defense was ready to go stop the run in the second half. I think that's why the offense looked a little bit sputtery.
I think the offense is still getting to know each other, because you have a quarterback that plays quarterback, and there opens up so many opportunities that you can do. And I think everybody is getting used to in game speed what Raiola can do when he moves the pocket, or how long he likes to sit in the pocket, or wide receivers. I mean, there were a couple of times last night that Raiola threw a fastball before guys had turned or had gotten to the top of their route. And so that's all a timing thing of getting used to, where they need to be, and his timing in game speed. As Schmidt was alluding to, they have time. Wide receiver blocking hasn't been great. I don't think Benhart has played well. It's still early. I think they're all trying to figure things out. But one thing is consistent. When they say, we're going to run the football when we need to run the football, they're running the football. I mean, Dante Dowdell put Shiloh Sanders out for a while. He broke his forearm in that collision. And I think as I look at the offense, they have a lot of opportunities. I think they're just testing things out. They used Barney a lot more last night. I think we'll see that increase. The pass they threw to Borkature usually is a Fedoni route, but Fedoni got dinged in this game. And I don't know that he was fully, he came back in, but I don't know if he was fully available to do the things that they like to do with him, because that route that Borkature run is a signature Fedoni route. So I think they're still learning each other and all the strengths, but they have something that they haven't had in a long time, and that is confidence that when you need a play, the quarterback's going to help you get a play, and he is not one of those good enough to beat you. He is one of those good enough, he's going to help you make a play. And so the offense, it kind of churned along last night and built off the energy of the offense. So I think this is a good stretch for Nebraska offensively to start to ratchet it up, open up the variety of the playbook a little bit, and also everybody to get used to playing with each other when they know the check calls and all of that kind of stuff, and they can kind of anticipate what's going to happen. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and there's some excitement for it. I just probably not as enamored as some might be about the offense from last night. And I'm looking at 60 minutes, not just the first half.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was something I brought up earlier. The passing attack, the best thing you can say is they didn't turn the football over. I'm with you, Gary. That passing attack still needs a little bit of time to get things figured out in terms of the trust between everybody. Dylan talked about earning the trust of his wide receivers. If you're earning your trust, you can't overthrow Jalen Lloyd. I know you had pressure in your face, but that Jalen Lloyd wheel route up the sideline, ooh, boy, he was
good play call. Hell of a play call.
To the fastest guy on the team. He put air under it. It was just a little bit long, but man, that's a route you got to have, especially against better opponents. But you mentioned the tight ends. You mentioned Fedoni. It's going to fly under the radar, but the run blocking of the tight ends last night was on another level. And if that's what Thomas Fedoni is,
he was good.
If that's what Thomas Fedoni is for you now, is a run blocker that uses his athleticism to pull around faster than any of your offensive linemen can, get that up to the second level before the linebackers can react. You know what? If that's what he's going to be, maybe we need to accept that. After the multiple knee injuries, to even have a guy out there still playing football at a high level, I mean, that's a statement in and of itself. And if he doesn't have that same explosiveness as a pass catcher that we came to expect, I don't think we should let our high expectations for a guy like that let us get him down, because he was a huge positive in the run game last night. He sprung a couple of big runs. He sprung the touchdown, pulling up into the hole, making it a key block. If that's what he's going to be, first and foremost, a run blocker, with Carter Nelson being a guy that is going to be getting ready as the season goes on to be your pass catcher, I don't think we should hold it against him, the fact that we had really, really high expectations for Fedoni, because he was fantastic as a run blocker. And we still haven't seen it in his Husker career, the high ceiling we thought that he could be as a pass catcher. And if that's what he is, that's okay.
I thought the play calling last night was kind of to comfort, getting Dylan comfortable with, again, being out there in a big moment. And once I'm with you, Gary. The most disappointing was not putting points on the board going after halftime. They got the ball back. You got the momentum. Put it in the end zone.
3 and outs.
Yeah, I mean, that was disappointing. But I think once they realized that, look, Colorado's shutting this thing down, then let's just keep this comfortable. Let's keep the ball away. I think people had it in their minds. Maybe the Colorado, Chris, you and I talked about it last night on your show, that Colorado game where they scored 27 points in the fourth quarter, or there was the Washington game in the early 90s where Washington put 15 or 21 on the fourth quarter. You thought it's still Shedeur Sanders, it's still Travis Hunter, it's still Horn.
Yeah.
So maybe they start to, and then so let's just put this thing in the icebox a little bit, and then realizing, well, they don't want to play, so let's just comfortably run the football. I thought I was a little disappointed too that Gabe Ervin didn't get a few more carries, in the third quarter just to pound it out, because Dowdell ran so physically yesterday. You don't want to have him make some kind of mistake where he's the one who hurts himself. Ramir Johnson, great to see him getting the kind of play that he's getting after all he's been through at Nebraska. But I thought maybe they could have gone a little bit deeper in the backfield and continued to keep that running back room kind of happy. But look, the start of the third quarter was disappointing. But after that, I thought it was kind of, well, let's just keep it away just so they don't bust one, just in case, Now one sign, and I mean, I think we can also, I didn't have on my bingo card that Emma Johnson would only have one carry, but the past Nebraska teams, when you get a lead and all of a sudden you stop scoring and it feels like, oh man, they've hit the wall. Past Nebraska teams have buckled. Yes. And instead of being at 28-10, it's all of a sudden 28-17, 28-24, and you're in attention convention. So we talk about complementary football, and Nebraska, I thought last night, had complementary position groups at times, especially on defense. But complementary football in the second half is that defense didn't let up. I mean, they had the sense that, okay, offense is, it's a little bit different here in the second half. Colorado's made a slight adjustment. They're not scoring like they did, but that's not going to impact us. We still got to go out there and do our job. And I think past teams would be 28-17 and it'd be 28-24. And you're like, whoa, what is going on here? And those guys on the other side of the ball is like, I don't care what the offense is doing. We got to do our job. And that's kind of their mentality. And I think that's, again, another thing that we've discussed already on the show is to stack onto that defense every single week is probably going to be the same. And they're going to give you a chance to win football games.
Just got to take care of the pill, and Nebraska has. It's the Average Joe Sports Show podcast. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, the AJ Sports Pods, where you can follow on Twitter. Guys, we built up the moment and opportunity and stage about Colorado, Prime, Nebraska, NBC. Nebraska delivered last night, 28-10. Where do you put this now? Are you ready to make a proclamation here? Not about being back, but about, was that a corner turning moment for Nebraska and the program, or at least this team? Did last night do enough for you to say, all right, let's take it one game at a time, one beer at a time? But
which, by the way, had a bad day yesterday in Lincoln.
Yes, they did.
I saw that
Coors Light and Cornhead Lager were saying uncle by about 2 p.m. But
before you continue on with your point, I heard a guy at the bar last night say, thank God this game was at night because I was so blasted this morning. I had time to sleep it off and I was ready for the game. I'm like, yeah. That was going to be in college again, but the guy he goes, I couldn't have made an afternoon game.
Another point to make here. I was sitting outside East Stadium last night at a tailgate during the first half watching, and there was a student from where was it? Poland. He was a Polish student in Nebraska. It was his first ever football game. He was speaking English, but he was so blasted, it was rough. I don't know what he was talking about. he had himself a grand old time, though. He loves football, by the way.
Schmidt and I had Brazilians sitting next to us for a
did.
time at the bar. Yeah.
And they
Enjoyable.
were beautiful. They were beautiful people.
Yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of bad decisions that happened post 10 o'clock last night in Lincoln, Nebraska.
It was glorious. It was a good time.
But
But
you know
to
what?
the point,
Everybody let that out.
yeah.
You know, you haven't tried to pick up somebody of the opposite sex since Nebraska was relevant football.
My roommate was a national championship baby 9 months later. Wonder if there's any Nebraska Colorado babies in 9 months.
Jeez.
Not
Hey,
here.
Back to your point, Schmitty. Last night, I don't think it was a referendum that Nebraska is back, but I think any blue blood that's disappeared and you're wondering if they'll ever come back and you want to say they're back, it usually takes a big time quarterback. Like Texas is back because Texas has a big time quarterback.
Yep.
So you can start to think about that, but didn't last night though feel like, and I think they played the Zach Bryan song on the field.
Revival.
While Revival, that I was trying to get out of the way of fans that were speed walking to the middle of the field. Is it does kind of feel when you win a game like that you're on the cusp of the revival.
Mm-hmm. No,
Not there yet, but there's enough there that, man, because anybody that's watching us right now, you guys, we've talked about it, it feels different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It doesn't feel like this is just, they won week 2. There feels like there's something is building there. And so I think a cusp of the revival last night was a way to look at that.
Well, then it's on to the next question, though, with this football team. I think we know between the ears, them stepping up in that moment, that showed me something. Stepping up when the lights are bright, a big rivalry game, everyone in the state is on pins and needles waiting for this one. The confidence that they showed in themselves to step up in that first half and play like that showed me something. The next question now is how does this team handle success? It's been a while since we had a Husker football team that has to be able to handle success. Everyone in Nebraska has been waiting for a team that will find success during a football season for a decade now? Can this team be satisfied that they're not there yet? That's the next question for this football team. It's always in a football season on to the next question. Next question for me is how does this team handle success? I don't think we're going to get a good idea of that against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa should get steamrolled. If they don't, I think it's an answer to the question of how does this team handle success. But it's just on to the next question in a football season.
No, and next Saturday, another night game. You get 8 of them at home. But how do they come out? How focused are they? How crisp are they? What do they look better at doing? Do they dominate like they're supposed to? So next Saturday will be fascinating. As big a win as Penn State had to open things up in Morgantown, they escaped with their life yesterday.
Notre Dame didn't.
Yeah, Notre Dame didn't. Oregon could very well be 0-2. I mean, they survived against the juggernaut known as Idaho in week 1. And then they barely beat Boise last night.
And there's a play. Go watch it back. Oregon player dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line, and he counted it as a touchdown.
The old Calvin Jones tribute.
If that gets called right, does Oregon win that football game? I don't know.
Hey, imagine if the guys working Nebraska's game last night were out there. What would they have called?
That was one of the things I'm going to talk about. Why are there conference-affiliated officials in college football these days? Why isn't it just a national officials consortium? Let's use that word. Why are there? These are Big 12 officials. These are Pac. Well, let's just hire Pac-12 or Pac-2 officials. What do those guys have to do these days? Right? There's only 2 teams in the Pac-2. But why isn't there a national group of officials so you don't have this designation of, well, they're Pac-12 or they're Big 12 or they're Big 10 officials, they're SEC officials? Why isn't there just a singular national group of officials? That doesn't happen in the NFL. College basketball used to have conference-affiliated officials, and they went to the national. But I don't understand that, and especially when it's a group of officials of from the conference of one of the teams. Okay, Colorado's on the road at Nebraska. Well, let's have Big 12 officials. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm not going conspiracy theory with the Big 12 officials, but we had a reffing crew, and as an umpire, I've been there. Completely different circumstance doing high school baseball, but you've been there where you let the crowd get into your head just a little bit. And whenever the crowd gets into your head a little bit, especially behind the plate, like you're not trusting your eyes no more. You see one come across and you're like, was that a strike? I don't know. It can be the same in football. I saw an officiating crew, that crowd got into their heads and they didn't trust their eyes anymore in that second half. And that's not a good place to be as an official. I'm not going conspiracy theory with Big 12, but that was a reffing crew that was not ready for that moment, was not ready for that crowd. It was
just garbage.
Well, so
another way to put it.
Mike Gundy won yesterday against Arkansas, and he lashed out at the SEC officials that were working the game in Stillwater against Arkansas. Here's the thing about the officials last night. And, that game had high intensity, and there were some hit stickers. I mean, guys were thumping each other last night, and you saw two guys get ejected for targeting, and Bayor is going to be out for the first half against Northern Iowa. But let's talk about the holding in the second half. And I get it. In the game of football, you can call holding on every friggin' play. But you let them go if it doesn't impact the play. If it's away from the play, if it's behind the play, as, there's no way that guy is going to run down the field and make a tackle. You know what? I think everybody in football understands you let that go. But there were times where Sanders would roll out or and it would be right in front of two officials, and there would be clear holding by a Colorado offensive lineman where the Nebraska defensive lineman could not make a swim move to get free because they were latched onto illegally. It was right in front of officials. They didn't throw a flag. Guys, look at the targeting penalty. There were two holds at the beginning of that play, and then that play ends with the targeting call. The stuff that happened right in front of the officials, not away from the ball, in front of their own eyes, man, I thought was pretty concerning. And I wouldn't be surprised if I think Colorado might do the same thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska turned some stuff in just for clarification for future games on how we should handle this, because, man, Rule was beside himself on a lot of times on stuff that was not being called, and then stuff that was called. It was really up and down in the second half. And to Elijah's point, I know that there are officials that do let crowds impact them, but man, the holding stuff last night was ridiculous. Can you imagine if that was a closer game? I mean, people would have tried to come on the field earlier.
I don't know if you guys have watched any of the broadcast from last night, but Terry McCauley, they said during the second half, he's just the third member of the broadcast crew at this point by how much he was jumping in. And multiple times he jumps in and just goes, yeah, guys, I don't know about that one. That's not a penalty. You can't call that one in that moment. And they just moved on. Like, whenever even the broadcast is like, yeah, these refs are horrible, it says something.
There was one play in the first half. Jari Butler ran down Shedeur Sanders and then stood over him and made some type of gesture that I think in any ordinary football game would have been ruled as taunting and unsportsmanlike. And it was a great play by Butler, but he should have been flagged. And the official was standing right there, and he got away with it. And then there was a helmet-to-helmet hit. Colorado later or earlier or at some point in the first half thought that was going to be targeting, and that got overruled. Just the inconsistency. But holding can be called on every play.
Yeah. So
and on Ramir Johnson's touchdown run, it looked like two guys were tangled up, fell down, and it just happened to be that the Husker guy fell on top of the Colorado guy, and that was the hold.
Yeah, the refs called that holding. I called that a pancake.
Yeah. But again, so a sign of growth with this team, and I mean, it is Colorado. Nebraska would let stuff like that get to them. Instead of one bad call would impact them for three more plays, and it didn't last night. But that was tough. That second half was, there was such a buzz. You're up 28-0 at halftime. You're out for blood, and that second half had no flow to it whatsoever.
No, you were cursing it in the stands. You were cursing it at home, and it was tough.
Should we address the elephant in the room?
Special teams?
Yep. So
that's where we're going.
So the toe meets leather thing is an issue. I'm still not fully sure on what they want to do with kickoffs. If they want to pound them into the end zone or these short kickoffs.
Don't kick it to
And-
Horn.
Yeah, Jimmy Horn's gonna make some money. I mean, if they would ever be smart in developing a roster there on offensive line, where they have their biggest asset is a star quarterback, if they would ever be smart enough to develop and build an offensive line, then they'd have something going, because they got enough wide receivers that cause you a pain in the butt, and they got a quarterback that can feed them, but they don't even protect their biggest asset, which is ridiculous. But I get it. Why would you want to do that? Because that makes absolute sense when you're building a roster. But back to Nebraska special teams. Sorry there, I had to get that in. So I'm not sure what Nebraska wants to do. Kickoff, Rule says, hey, let's try and steal an extra possession. We're not wanting to pound it in the end zone. Then the other part is we have a Tristan Alvano issue. And that's going to come back and bite Nebraska at some key point in this game. And I think it also impacts how you call plays and how you start to evaluate when you inch closer to the 25-yard line and you get into the red zone. It just, I don't know about the yips or whatever with Tristan, but something is off when he comes out there to attempt a field goal, which is not an ungodly distance.
No,
I mean,
it's Rule is, he knows that you're going to end up having to pay taxes on it if you're not better. And I don't know what you do. You've got 3 kickers on your roster. Somebody's got to be able to make a freaking kick, and you feel bad because they want to, but that's your job. Your job in the Big Ten is to hit a game winner or a game tire. It's gonna happen, and I mean, it can't be the Achilles heel, and right now it is.
And there was a funny moment on the broadcast last night. 2 back-to-back points. First off, it was on the 3rd down whenever Nebraska was about to kick the field goal, end of the first quarter, where it's just a little short crossing route. They still end up a good 6 yards short of the sticks. And Colt McCoy said something that made me laugh, because I'm like, dude, where's your preparation? He said, you got the field goal in the bag. You don't need to take any unnecessary risks. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting comment. You haven't been watching Nebraska. But also the secondary moment from that. Actually, Schmidt, jump in, and I'll get back to my secondary.
No, I just say nothing important. Colt had a kicker at Texas. It was
we know.
Yeah.
But you continue, Elijah.
But the secondary point is, as the quarter break is winding down, Dylan Ryle is on the field, looking at the sideline, looking at Rule, saying, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Moving forward, do you start listening to that a little bit more, knowing what you have in the field goal room, or the kicking room, excuse me. I said it off season that, hey, if you have an offense you trust, I wouldn't be surprised to see this team start going for it on 4th down. Nebraska doesn't go for it there. Do you start listening to your quarterback moving forward whenever he says, hey, we should go for it? Because I saw that and I went, man, even Dylan doesn't have confidence in his kickers. That's 4th and a long 6, and you want to go for it.
Well, it may also explain that's 2 straight weeks at the end of the first half. They've executed the 2-minute drill and they've gone for kill shots.
Yes.
That may also, to back up your point, this is a concern. I mean, I know Tristan personally, and I thought last year he had his ups and downs as a freshman kicker, but I've seen him make kicks before. But God, you got to wonder now about his confidence. They're not afraid to send him out there, but boy, back to Elijah's point, if you have an offense, man, do you think about, we got to do something different here, because we can't stall at the 25, because there's no guarantee that a 42-yard field goal is going to go through the uprights. But plain and simple, maybe Memorial Stadium for kickers is cursed, because it's 2 straight weeks the 35K from FNBO has been shanked.
Yeah, it's a little rough. Nebraska will have to weigh that risk reward, because it was a momentum zapper, right? So Nebraska's up 14-0. They're driving, stalls. You want to go up 17-0 in a game you think's going to be tight, or all right, when's Colorado's offense going to pull the grenade pin and hit a 80-yarder to get back in this thing? You miss a field goal, didn't come to fruition because of the defense, but you're gonna have a game soon that you're gonna need every opportunity. I mean, Nebraska was 3 for 5 in the red zone. A bad night needs to be 4 for 5. I mean, you need to get points in the red zone. That's clearly obvious, but Nebraska right now can't do it. At least 40 yards are in when it comes to the field goal.
But can we say something else on the other end? Because I have been hard on him. You guys have brought him up. Brian Buschini showed up last night.
Oh,
The Brian Buschini from 2 years ago was on display last night. And remember, it was this game last year where we wondered, is he injured? Because in the altitude of Boulder, Colorado, he was not good. When Nebraska needed him to be good, last night when Nebraska needed him, man, he came through in a huge way.
No, and it was imperative. And some of those, they were into the wind. I mean, it was breezy. At least the flag said it was windy. I don't know how swirling it was down on the field, but no, you need that. That was the one part of special teams you felt good about last night, because the return part, Nebraska got gashed a few times on the kickoff return, to your point earlier, Sharpie, about the kickoff and then the field goal part. So, 1 for 3 on your third phase of the football game, but it didn't cost you last night. Can you get cleaned up before it cost you in Big Ten play?
And while we're putting pictures on the refrigerator, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda has been pretty efficient in preserving yards in the kick. He's not let them bounce past him and roll. As indicated on the punt by Buschini that went out of bounds at the 2-yard line, the Colorado return man, gave the bluff that he was going to make the catch. That goes over his head and it rolls another 20 yards and out of bounds. Garcia Castaneda, for the most part, has fielded, I think, just about every punt that has come his way. Now, he may not have gotten a long return out of it, and sometimes it can be a little perilous where you think he's going to make a play on it. He better field it and hold on to it. But he has not, as I can recall, in the first 2 games, allowed one to roll past him and give up 10, 15, 20 yards of field position because the ball is rolling helplessly inside the 10, inside the 5. So fielding punts, I don't think we're going to break Oliver Martin's fair catch record for punts fair caught inside the 10 ever, but good on him to save some yards in the return game.
That's
going deep in the analysis of a game. If we're talking about a punt returner not giving up yards, things are going okay if you're 2-0.
Well, it's something that at times was an issue. You know what? And there's a lot of things that have been fixed so far through 2 games.
Look, the Colorado guy letting that punt go, put them at the 2, and a play later, Tommy Hill picks it off. That all of that sequence played in it from Buschini's punt to Tommy Hill's pick.
No, it was big for sure. Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, the Average Joe Sports Show podcast, and can find us on YouTube. Do so on Twitter at the AJ Sports Pod. And we'll wind it down here as we move forward, guys. Monumental win for Nebraska because of a lot of the things we've touched on, the stage, the atmosphere, delivering for the fan base. Progress, which is what you had to see. Sharpie is back.
I thought he went to the locker room with 2 minutes left in the show.
Yeah, that's how I wanted to end.
I knew Sharpie wouldn't do that, but maybe that was an homage to, hey, this is something we got to talk about.
I had to go to the bathroom, and it's crazy in my house. I got people F-bombing me as I'm walking to the bathroom.
No, they're saying good luck. See you.
Yeah, good luck to you.
You see that video of Shedeur walking to the locker room and one of the Husker fans yells at him, "What time is it, Shedeur?"
Well, and then to top that up, you saw Dylan in the locker room with Will and Taylor. Yep. It's okay. Like Terrence Knighton on the field after the game was about as petty as a large man of his size could be. And I was here. I was all here for it. Oh, he was very petty. And he was one of the first coaches to go to Twitter after the game. And he can do that. I mean, his boys are eating. I mean, the first quarter they go to Old Country. The second quarter they go to Pizza Ranch. The third quarter they go to Golden Corral, and then the fourth quarter they had a Buffalo Stampede for dinner. So he can be pretty petty. The video that I saw, because I wondered, it's 28-10, and Shedeur doesn't come in, and I was already down on the field, and I thought, whoa, they've already thrown in the towel. And then I saw the video afterwards of him going to the locker room. Can we also discuss that he has 2 cameramen that follow him? They were dressed in Sanders number 2 T-shirts.
Mhm.
What in the are we doing here? But I do wonder on the hit if he got concussed and they thought, you know what, this is going to turn into a circus. If the fans are coming on the field, let's just get him off. When it's 28-10 and you've had the kind of career at Colorado that the whole operation has had, you're going to draw the scrutiny. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe that's what they were thinking, that he did get concussed and they didn't want him down there. Because if that's not the case, ooh, boy, I don't know if you're a teammate, you have to go, oh, we're 2 plus the rest of us. That was not a great look. But I thought Nebraska, for the most part, man, when they had a chance to hit him last night, they hit him. And I don't know how he keeps it going because, dude, he takes some monster hits.
He's a tough dude. Deion's the mother of all travel ball dads, dude. I mean, he's the
final boss.
He's got his 2 kids and he's got his kid's buddy Travis, and that's all he gives a damn about on that football team.
Well, don't forget about Shiloh.
I see he has his 2 kids. Deion,
sorry.
Travel ball dad, and he wants them to star. So you got one at shortstop and one on the mound, and it's hell for everybody.
Has he? I'm blanking. Has Deion Sanders ever coached a college football game without his sons or Travis Hunter?
No, he is and he has never coached. His kids have never played organized football without dad as the coach. And he's had Travis Hunter for 4 years or 3 years from Jackson State, and then the 2 at Colorado.
Was it two at Jackson State, 2 at Colorado, right?
That's 4.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little irritating for everybody else because it absolutely looks like special preferred treatment. And, there's the Bill Parcells method where if you're Lawrence Taylor, you're going to get treated different. Get it, fine. You're going to go win ball games because of him. But I agree with you. I hope it is the concussion part versus let's just make sure my kid's okay.
No, I don't think though. If you got a concussion, I don't think they'd send him out there for the post-game press conferences. Maybe you go take him back and evaluate him and say, all right, he's fine, send him out to post-game presser. But if he's concussed, you don't put that guy in front of the media. That's not the standard operating procedure for concussions.
Elijah, at any point, I have no idea what they do.
Good, fair enough.
They're just making up the rules as they go. But to finish this about Colorado, I love that Rule showed some edge during the week and then last night, as Matt Rule could be edgy, it was not about the team they were playing. It was all about them. And I think it rubbed that football program the wrong way when the talk was about the 2 stars on the other side.
Yes.
And they said, we got stars. We got guys that are stars that don't want to be stars. They just want to win football games. But I like that he said, you know what? They got good players over there, but we got good players too. And I like that mentality because you don't think that was the discussion all week about you're a good football team. You are a good football team. They might get all the headlines and they might get all the NIL deals and the flash and the dash, but you're a good football team. And he kind of alluded to that a little bit last night. So, I mean, I'll be disappointed that we don't get to talk about Colorado anymore and they can just go away. And now we're on to Northern Iowa. But seeing that thing, guys, up close for 2 straight years, that is an absolute circus. That is a traveling reality show that is not serious about how you go about winning football games at the college level.
Nope. It's all about what kind of promotion and showcase can I give the certain selected few. And,
I prefer a football program that lives on the scoreboard and not on your YouTube or TikTok channel.
Well put. Way to finish. That is the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at the AJ Sports Pod. Like and subscribe. Give us a rating as well. Be happy to take that under consideration on Spotify and iTunes. We'll be back at you midweek this week for Northern Iowa, and we'll have a recap next Sunday morning at 10:30.
Elijah has just one more.
Can we quickly round table a final thought? Because I have just 2 quick points I want to make. First, this episode of Chasing 3 that's going to be coming out this week. Gary, you mentioned the pettiness from this Husker football team. I need that episode like a fish needs water. There's going to be some really, really good stuff in there. Matt Rule's pregame speech, whatever was said at halftime. I need to hear all of that. That's going to be awesome. Number 2, Matt Rule starts season 2-0. As Nebraska's coach, he is 7-7 with Northern Iowa coming to town next week. When Nebraska gets that win, this will be the first time since November of 2017 that Nebraska's had a football coach who is above 500.
Wow.
That
was Mike Riley's last game. He fell back to 500 with a 56-14 loss to Iowa. That was the last time Nebraska had a coach that was above 500. Nebraska's going to have that next week.
Well, continue to strive.
Holy. Wow.
That hurts. But a couple final thoughts from me. Again, defense wins championships. I don't know that Nebraska is a championship team, but they've got a championship mentality and attitude with how much work they put in. It paid off. They're physical and keep getting better on offense if you're a big Red fan, and keep hugging that defense and thank those guys who came back. Bill?
Great show by Nebraska all around last night. The stage was set. All of the people and that were honored. The team came through. I'm like Elijah. I'm anxious to hear the "If we die, we die" speech. I want to hear Bud Crawford's speech. I mean, nothing jazzes me up more for a Nebraska football game than when I see Bud Crawford in Husker red. I love that guy. One of my favorite athletes of all time. So I thought that was pretty cool, and Rule gave him a shout out in the post-game press conference. So a great show by Nebraska all around, and I'm anxious to see how the Colorado show starts to come to an end, because I can't imagine Deion Sanders coaching a team without his sons or Travis Hunter. So that experiment, that show, the curtain might be closing, and I think Colorado will fall. If they were at rock bottom when Carl Doral was fired, the interest in Colorado football without Deion Sanders, I think, is really going to plummet. And so be it. That's what they asked for.
Sharpie.
Past years, Nebraska football would go into games like that, wanting to win or hoping they could win. That football program last night knew they were going to win before they ever got on the bus to go to the stadium.
It's big. That is big.
And now, I mean, are we gonna be able to drum up the same hate for the Northern Iowa Panthers?
If the student section,
all those friggin' teachers that have gone to Northern Iowa that ruined our lives.
I think it'd be in poor taste for the student section to be chanting "fuck you and I" next week. So.
Wait. It's still Sunday morning, and it was good luck. Paraphrase.
Yeah, but
wow.
We're all adults here. We know what was being chanted last night. We were there.
Yeah. This is the new Nebraska.
Sorry. Good luck, you and I.
Thank you.
No longer Nebraska nice.
Good luck to you all this weekend as you shake her off, and we'll be back at you midweek.
Enjoy your NFL.